How is sustainability reshaping corporate competitiveness? Can financial performance go hand in hand with environmental ambition? We dived into these questions with a panel of experts at the World Economic Forum. Here are some highlights.
We are going to have one slide, and I'm going to talk to you about sort of the real business implications of what it is that CDP has unearthed, thinking about some of the insights as well. There are some pluses and there are some minuses. I look at this and I think there are actually three key things that come away for me. The first is that leadership is trending up, which says that companies are really starting to think about sustainability leadership as part of their business. And what we're finding is that 7 out of 13 industrial categories, their valuations and their market capitalization were stable or went up. The second point is that geography matters. And what we've revealed is that the country that is highest ranked in terms of number of leaders is Japan. So they're at 22%. It's closely followed by the EU, hurrah, and the UK, where I call home. Interestingly, the US is lagging behind. And the third is adaptation is on the corporate agenda. And how do we know this? So CDP has unearthed last year that companies are identifying risks very specifically. They're not just talking about the risks, they're putting a number value, a dollar value against each of those risks. And cumulatively, that's $1.5 trillion worth of risks that is quantified as financial risks coming specifically from physical risks. And you might say, oh, well, that's a pretty big number, but what's anyone going to do about it? Unfortunately, the corporates aren't doing anything about it yet. So here's one of those gaps that you referred to. So only $84.5 billion has been allocated by those same corporates who have identified the $1.5 trillion in actually putting capital to work in order to mitigate that. I think that there's some work to be done, and perhaps the capital markets can think about how to mitigate some of that risk that's already so well defined and financially bounded. So I think that from that point of view, we've got three key things that are working to the advantage of the corporate health check. One of the things that we don't know about is how is it that when we look at different geographies that don't have as much data density, or how is it that we're looking at different industries, how is it that some of those actions are going to make the most difference? And that's, Jane, why I'm super excited about inviting our panel up here across industry to help us find out more, but also make sure that we are embedding the real concept of what the corporate health check is about, which is what you can measure, you can manage.
Vaishali, from your perspective at Renew, how do you think C-suite leaders should interpret sustainability today, not just as a cost center, but as a strategic response to economic trade, as well as energy security concerns?
So at Renew, we've never really looked at ESG as a cost center. We've looked at it as a strategic imperative for our business. And I think that's the first step when you look at it from a company lens. I think it's really important for us to ensure that the entire organization is engaged and is just not an ESG checklist of things to be done and reported for scores. And while that sounds very commonsensical, it's not very common in the industry. So that's number one. Secondly, in the current geopolitical environment where, we have our supply chains around the world, it's really important to look at how trade and energy security is impacting your business. And so the CEO really needs to have a broader perspective, which guides the CEO to look at the specific requirements. And then I think when the board, senior management get engaged, and from the bottoms up, we are a renewable energy company and we have 150 plus sites across the country. So it's really important for us to connect that tonality with what's happening on the ground and get people on the ground engaged as well.
Gilles, what are the most common execution failures that prevent companies from turning sustainability ambition into business outcomes?
So I think the key success factors are, number one, a clear ambition. And this ambition needs to be embedded in the core strategy of the company and not on the sideline. Number two is the clarity of targets. The targets needs to be very clear, but achievable as well as ambitious. They need to be translated into clear plans, action plans, investment plans, and resourcing. And sometimes that's where things disconnect. And finally, you need to engage with stakeholders across the value chain, suppliers, customers, and partners.
Thank you. Over to the other Gilles. How do you deploy responsibly, I guess, your responsibility investment opportunities?
Yeah, maybe one word before to echo what Sherry was saying, because we've had lots of conversations about the need for Europe to be more assertive, to be stronger, to gain in autonomy. And we should remember that decarbonation, for instance, is one aspect of making Europe stronger. It is definitely in our economic, geopolitical interest to go further into decarbonation, and we have assets to do that. Just wanted to start with this very simple statement. Now, as to what we do, first of all, we engaged in sustainable investment well before reporting became the issue of the day. So we're very far away from a box-ticking exercise. And I think that for us, it probably starts with having a very clear, visible target which mobilizes the entirety of the company. And we've been actually more than successful on this. We had this idea of this target of reducing the carbon intensity of our portfolio by 50% between 2019 and 2030, and actually we got there in 2024. I really think that setting a very, very clear ambition for the entire company, something which is clear, something which everyone can easily understand, is absolutely key. If you lose yourself in a variety of sub-targets, sub-objectives, even if obviously you need to make things more granular in the entities, you may lose a little bit this momentum.
Thank you. Ezgi, hello. Waiting patiently there. Thank you so much. What does effective governance look like at L'Oréal when it comes to sustainability decisions and how they're affecting R&D, sourcing, marketing, as well as brand strategy, all simultaneously?
So L'Oréal is a company that was born out of science over 115 years ago with a long-standing commitment to sustainability, a deep sense of responsibility. So when we think about sustainability, it's really embedded across our entire value chain, from sourcing to operational excellence to product design and research to how we bring products and solutions to market to better serve our customers and consumers. And that for us, as a leader in the beauty industry, we not only feel that it's a responsibility, we actually see it as an opportunity. So in our sustainability efforts, our program called L'Oréal for the Future, we work across 4 pillars. So climate action, of course, nature, stewarding the nature, circularity, and community. And let's take circularity, for example, as we're working on more circular business models, incorporating newer ingredients and packaging solutions, and really pursuing the next generation technologies that are out there. We've been also launching refill solutions to the market to lower the environmental profile of our products, but also offer that consumer a way to lower their impact and a better price point.
What economic trends do you really think will most reward companies that have embedded sustainability into their strategy, and I guess penalize those who haven't?
Well, there's an interesting debate right now, and there was a debate this week around carbon pricing, for instance. I know that it's a complex conversation, and then, yes, we've decided to postpone a little bit the implementation or the extension of the carbon trading system in Europe by 1 year, but it's going to happen. And this is the beginning of a very nice way and quantifiable way to directly link performance to carbon. It gives you a clear, public, transparent benchmark to say this project is too carbon intensive to be financially viable because it will actually cost them. Mm-hmm. And this is going to change, I think, a lot of the way we deal with this sort of issues.
Vaishali, CDP data consistently highlights governance. What specific governance structures or leadership behavior have you seen that make the biggest difference between ambition and actual delivery?
Sure. So what we did was that we figured that it's really important for us. We had an ESG board level committee. Yeah. And then under that, we formed 3 distinct committees, one at the senior management level, one at the site level, and one was a group of climate champions. So they weren't folks who were in our function, but they were folks who were passionate about doing this for the company. And that really drove how we delivered.
I'd like you to expand a little bit further on the governance and strategy topics that we're discussing here with Vaishali. What governance structures or accountability mechanisms most strongly correlated with real-world impact and performance?
Well, I do think that, doubling down on this idea that transition plans are front and center now. But going back to the governance, it's becoming an embedded part of how you do business. And I'd like to also pick up on another point, which we haven't talked too much about, but I think is really exciting, and we're hearing a lot about here at Davos, which is water. And understanding that water is part of nature, part of biodiversity. CDP has been collecting information on water and water governance for 12 years. That was way before it was fashionable, before it was interesting, before anyone would pay for it. Now, we're getting a huge amount of demand for the water data. Why? It's because if the governance isn't there, if the tracking and understanding of how you are being efficient about such a scarce resource isn't part of your management and governance lexicon, you're actually setting yourself up for a problem when scarcity starts hitting. And we're talking about demand overpacing supply by 57% by 2030 for fresh water. So again, this is not decades forward. And actually, the thing that gives me comfort is that we are talking a lot about it, not only here at Davos, but also across the world, and I mean the entire world, including the Americas, because water is an economic input.
I think you have something to add on to this. I could see you nodding in agreement with a lot of those statements.
I mean, we discussed mitigation, and now we're getting into adaptation and resilience, right? And I think over the years, as companies have been on the sustainability journey, and as we're asking ourselves the tougher questions and building deeper understanding of the real world challenges that we're looking to solve, we are finding ourselves that this is not just a reporting or compliance exercise. The data is telling us something. It is showing us where the far-reaching impacts of climate change are, where we need to work upstream in our sourcing regions, where we need to understand the needs of the consumer in the household, what that looks like. So for us, the resilience and adaptation component becomes a way of thinking about the future of beauty and how it becomes more sustainable, inclusive, and personalized.
I have a final question that I'd like to ask to all of you. We'll start with you, Vaishali, and we'll work all the way down. If you could leave Davos leaders with one strategic takeaway from the CDP Corporate Health Check 2026 and the knowledge that you're bringing to the table here, what should they be doing differently on Monday?
So it's a very, very challenging world, and companies and people in companies are uncertain about the future of sustainability, the future of all things climate. I think it's really important for us to see the bigger picture, that all of what we are doing is, after all, for the transition. Definitely in India, we're trying to move from coal to clean, and I think India's shown really super ambition and execution with respect to delivery on the ground.
I think we can be successful because we are not going to take this, and we're not taking it as a chore, but as a business opportunity and also as a source of pride for the people working in our companies.
I think maybe one final thought would be why you do what you do matters. And I think profoundly understanding what you're solving for and asking the questions from the ground up, right? Really looking into your consumers, your communities. What are you solving for? What challenges are there on the ground? How can you continue to provide the products and services that improve the quality of life?
Sustainability is not only disclosure, it's part of the core strategy for long-term value creation. There are climate leaders who show the path forward and learn from those who are already successfully developing sustainability strategy and creating value.
Thank you. Sherry.
Oh, a lot of pressure to come last after this incredible panel. I'd say that actually sustainability is core to your financial performance. And that really hits the nail on the head because we often talk about risk, physical risk, environmental risk, but that's the tale of only one half. The other half is the opportunity, and understanding how it is that you balance those two and make the investments today to be sustainable tomorrow. That is a financial story. That is not an environmental story.
So those are the highlights. Check out the full conversation on euronews.com. Thanks for watching.